I was working the road this weekend. I was flying on a Boeing 737. I've never seen people pay more attention to the safety demonstration at the beginning.
And staying with Trump's tariffs and deals, all of them seem to have one thing in common, or rather, one company in common, and that is Boeing. Wherever Trump goes, Boeing follows. Is this some sort of a new nexus? And if so, how does it impact global aviation? First, let's unpack the trend. We spoke about Indonesia's deal with the U.S. That deal includes 50 Boeing jets, 50 jets. Indonesia will have to buy these planes from America. That is the deal. In the month of May this year, Donald Trump traveled to West Asia, and in Qatar, he announced a multi-billion-dollar deal. Again, guess who was part of it? Boeing. Qatar agreed to buy more than 200 Boeing planes. Another deal was struck in Saudi Arabia. The kingdom agreed to buy 30 Boeing 737 planes. And finally, you have the UK. British Airways ordered 32 Boeing Dreamliners. That too shortly after the US-UK trade deal. So the trend is pretty clear and consistent. Trump is pushing Boeing sales as part of the trade package. He is almost blackmailing countries to buy Boeing jets. The question is why? Well, it could be a pure business decision. Boeing is a flagship American company, and aerospace is a key job creator for the U.S. economy. More than 2 million Americans work in this sector. So more orders equals more jobs. But with Donald Trump, nothing is ever that simple. The president has a background in the aviation industry. In the 1990s, he had his own airline. It was called Trump Shuttle. And he's said to have many friends in this industry, including Boeing's former CEO. That friendship came in handy in 2018 and 2019. You may remember what happened back then. 2 Boeing 737 planes crashed in succession. Regulators across the world decided to ground that model. But guess who did not initially? The United States. Boeing CEO spoke to President Donald Trump. He assured Trump that the planes were safe to fly, so the U.S. did not ground this model. And all of us know what happened later. The problem was indeed with Boeing, and Washington had no choice but to ground the planes. But what does this episode tell you? It does seem like Trump has a soft spot for this company. At one point, he was haggling with them for a new Air Force One, because he badly wanted a new Boeing jet. And the love continues in his second term in office. Earlier this year, Trump ordered a 6th-generation fighter jet. And who got the contract? No surprises. Boeing. So this is not a normal government-business relation. There's clearly more at play, which makes you wonder, what does it mean for global aviation? Well, this industry, global aviation, is a duopoly. America's Boeing makes up 40% of the airline market. France's Airbus makes 56%. Together, Boeing and Airbus sell almost all commercial planes in the world. And yes, there's a rivalry too. Consider the tariff war between Europe and the US. Trump has threatened 30% tariffs on Europe. In response, Brussels has prepared tit-for-tat measures. And among the target companies is Boeing. So this is very much a strategically sensitive industry. It gives you leverage, but it's also an easy target. Just look at what China did. When Trump threatened tariffs, China targeted Boeing. They cancelled all Boeing deliveries. Instead, the Chinese turned to Airbus. Reports say Airbus could set up a plant in China. In exchange, China will place a mega order. It is said to be worth tens of billions of dollars. Now, hearing all of this may sound worrying. After all, planes are not just any other machine. They transport millions of people around the world. So is this duopoly healthy? And is there an alternative at all? It's clear that this system is not working, because right now there's a shortage of airplanes in the world. Again, I have numbers from 2019 to 2024. Around 7,000 planes were delivered to airline companies, 7,000 planes in 5 years. This was way below the requirement, because the projection was 12,000 planes. So what's causing the shortage? You've got supply chain disruptions, you've got shortage of skilled labor, and of course, you've got geopolitical tensions. All of this has contributed to the delays. Boeing has a backlog of 11.5 years. Airbus has a backlog of 10 years. So clearly they're unable to keep up with the demand. And what about the alternatives? Well, there are some smaller players in the market like Brazil's Embraer, Canada's Bombardier, and China's state-run COMAC. Can they break this aviation duopoly? Not anytime soon. The barriers to entry are too high, meaning you have to spend a lot of money to set yourself up. Things like factories, equipment, and clearances, you need all of that. And even if you do all of that, it's tough to create a brand. Just think about it. Chinese goods already have a bad name in the market. People hesitate to buy Chinese phones. So will airlines buy Chinese planes? Or will they go with established names like Airbus? Unfortunately, this is the reality of the aviation industry. Boeing and Airbus have too big a head start. They can delay, they can fail, they can lie, but airlines have no option but to turn to them.
Come here, Susie. You remember me? Your daddy's friend, Henry?
No, don't.
Danielle Bensky was an aspiring ballerina when she met Jeffrey Epstein. From there, her world would turn upside down. Bensky alleges Epstein sexually abused her, threatened, and coerced her. Epstein was arrested in 2019 on federal charges of sex trafficking minors, but died by suicide before the case could go to trial. Bensky has been speaking out against the Justice Department's decision not to release any additional documents to the public, though just yesterday, President Trump asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to seek the release of grand jury testimony related to the case. Danielle Bensky joins us now. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. This is really important. Thank you.
I just want to start, if you're comfortable, can you tell us what you went through with Epstein?
Yeah, so I was a ballet dancer, and I went to professional performing arts school in the city, and I was recruited at a very young age. I was not quite 18 at the time, and I met Epstein, and at first it wasn't, the abuse didn't start until a little bit later, and my mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She had an acoustic neuroma. I had been to the mansion before, and I knew that he had a model of a brain that was in sculpture form. So nobody knew where his money had come from at that point. All I knew was that he was a very powerful person, and it felt very intimidating, and he often manipulated us to feel that intimidation. So I didn't know where the money came from, and I thought that it came from neuroscience. And so when my mom had discovered that she had a brain tumor, I had gone to him and showed him the brain scans. And when I did, that was when everything evolved and the world kind of came crashing down for me, in that he said basically, okay, well, what will you do for this? He had said, I know the top brain surgeons at Mount Sinai. I have all of this power, and I can use it to help you, or I can make it really difficult for your mother. For myself, I was a teenager, and I was a young teenager, and I just felt like I had to go along with it for her safety, and so I did, and that was when the abuse turned for me.
I'm so sorry you went through all of that.
Thank you.
What went through your mind when you found out that the Justice Department was essentially closing the case and had decided not to release further information to the public, apart from what President Trump asked for last night?
It is a level of sadness that I don't think people quite grasp, because there's depression involved. There's disassociation happened for me for quite some time. There's this level of re-traumatization that happens regularly when this stuff kind of resurfaces. It's so important to get stories like this out, because we don't want it perpetuated. And if history is erased, then we don't have anything to point to. So for me, I feel it's incredibly saddening, but also, it's the reason why I felt the need to speak up.
Yes. Well, as we said, President Trump has asked the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to release all pertinent grand jury testimony. What did you make of that particular request? Because even though grand jury testimony is not the full scope of the Justice Department's files on Jeffrey Epstein, do you see that request as a good development, a productive development?
Honestly, the grand jury proceedings, I mean, they'll be highly redacted, I'm sure. And it's a far cry from making information available to the public. And I mean, there's so much that we will be missing out on. And it's.
What would you be hoping to learn if the files on Jeffrey Epstein were to be fully released to the public, though redacted, I'm sure, in large portion?
I think it's all about accountability. I think that if we have names, we kind of can get more of a sense of the inner workings. You know, as a young teen, when I was there were so many eyewitnesses. There were people everywhere in his house, you know, from the housekeeper to the maid that brought me upstairs, all of this, right? And it always baffled me of, like, especially in my older years now, how is this possible that nobody spoke up? And I just feel that without having a list of names, or even not even the list of names, I think just to have the files and be able to see the scope of it, just to be able to get more insight on the inner workings, I think would be beneficial for everybody.
Right. The Justice Department had concluded that there is no so-called client list, but we have seen a lot of backlash to the Justice Department's conclusions about the case, backlash among President Trump supporters, which has brought, of course, this case back into the headlines for the past several days. What has that been like for you to watch this case politicized in that way?
You know, I think we've had multiple presidents since we began unraveling all of this. And for me, I think that the case transcends politics, and we have to remember that these are human stories, right? And we're just looking for closure, and it doesn't ever seem to come. So to put it into the media and make it this, like, politicized event, it's really disheartening to, you know, I think we're losing a bit of the humanity in it.
Well, in the Justice Department's conclusion, it did acknowledge Epstein harmed more than 1,000 victims, and the department said, quote, "One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims." Given how you're feeling in this moment, do you think the government has brought justice to victims here?
Yeah, I don't believe that they have. I think that we sit with all of these thoughts, and we sit with all this lives in the darkest places of ourselves. And I think that without the accountability piece, we're never going to be able to fully heal. And we're never going to be able to see accountability if we're not looking at the full scope of the case. And how can we do that if everything is constantly redacted?
Well, Danielle, you've been dealing with the personal consequences of meeting Jeffrey Epstein for several decades now. Yeah. Can I just ask how you're doing with all this renewed public attention on the case? How heavily does this still weigh on you?
I think that your past informs your future. And after the abuse with Jeffrey, I couldn't look at myself in a leotard and tights for quite some time. I did not want to do ballet. I did not want to do much of anything because I was so disassociated from who I was. So I started on this journey of choreography, and I realized how important movement therapy is, and feeling in control of my body again and telling stories. And so I've moved into this world of choreography with youth repertory theater. And, you know, my intention now is to create a very holistic performer who understands how to prevent injury, who understands how to meditate and keep themselves very whole. And so I think it informs me in the way that I want to be the person that I didn't have at that age. And so it's been a really beautiful time to come back to the parts of myself that were lost when I was a kid and try to really build kids up in the sense that they can feel whole, so that this doesn't happen to them.
Danielle Bensky, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time and the light shed on us survivors.
We have lived and seen the passing of a century, the life of Frantz Fanon, also known as Omar in his Algerian life. This remarkable intellectual, this truly world-changing revolutionary figure, this man of many personalities and transformations, is still with us because he's still in our mind. He still informs our thinking. And when we read him, we meet him at the deepest levels of thought and resistance to colonialism, to imperialism, to oppression, and for freedom. His voice was a voice not just for Algeria, and certainly not just for Martinique. His voice was for the world, and his messages about resistance to colonialism, decolonization, and revolution against the forces of global oppression still ring like bells in the night. His words are memorable. His message will last as long as men and women fight for freedom on this earth. His words have been translated into over a dozen languages, and they're still traveling in the minds and on the lips of millions. Frantz Fanon, 100 years. See you in another century. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal.
That's why we have to think as black people. Stop singing and dancing and start thinking.
Wow.
Thinking and reading. I say reading is more important than watching TV.
Willa Robinson has been collecting and selling black books and vinyl in Kansas City since the 1990s. She's now retiring and closing what's considered the longest-running black-owned bookstore in Missouri. KCUR's Lisa Clockle sat down with Robinson to talk about her collection, the legacy she's leaving behind, and what's next for the storefront.
On a hot Tuesday afternoon, Willa Robinson is busy helping customers inside her storefront, Willa's Books and Vinyl. Books by black authors line every shelf, a testament to her decades-long passion for collecting. Willa's Books and Vinyl is technically closed to the public now, but it doesn't keep frequent patrons of the store and friends of Miss Willa, as she's affectionately called, from stopping in for a chat.
I won't be here. I'm done.
You gonna retire?
Community members recently celebrated Robinson's retirement at a goodbye party hosted by the Kansas City Defender, a black-owned media outlet. It was one of the last chances for people to buy from her collection before Willa's Books and Vinyl closed for good.
I'm not selling anymore.
What happened? No gospel?
No gospel.
That's messed up.
Yeah, that's your messed up.
Robinson's lifelong passion for collecting books by black authors began, she says, in the late 1970s after a spiritual awakening. She would go hunting for books on the Holy Spirit.
I wanted to collect books by black authors.
Growing up, Robinson says she didn't really read books by black authors.
We very seldom saw children, black children, in books. So it was important to me to get books, put books in my store, that's where they could see their faces.
And that kicked off an obsession with finding books by black authors. She searched everywhere.
I am a hunter, and whenever they had a sale somewhere, I would be there early as I possibly could, and I would be there until it was time to go.
Even on vacation, she would visit thrift stores.
Because what I wanted, they didn't sell in Barnes & Noble.
Robinson estimates her collection, which includes records, magazines, and tons of books, at 15,000. Some are rare, like a book from 1864.
This is a book by Frederick Douglass. It's worth like $2,500. Maybe worth more than that, but that's what I'm saying. Wow. This is a first edition. This is the real one.
Robinson began selling books by Black authors in 1996. She opened her first storefront in 2007 along Troost Avenue, back when it was just called Willa's Books. In 2015, she moved to an office building along East 63rd Street, joining more than 100 other Black-owned businesses. In 2021, she opened up Willa's Books and Vinyl at this corner of 56th and Troost. Nina Kurz with the Kansas City Defender remembers the first time she walked into the store 2 years ago. Music played and books were everywhere.
And I think that was my first feeling of it, is like safety. And especially I think being in the Black community, having somewhere that you feel safe to be yourself truly is very rare.
The Defender plans to turn the store into a public archive and community space. And staffers and volunteers like Kurz have been helping preserve Robinson's vast collection. People will still be able to come and browse the archive, but not buy.
This being the longest standing Black bookstore in Missouri, it is very scary and critical for that to just be wiped out of our community.
Though she's loved the recent outpouring of support, Robinson knows it's been difficult to be a bookseller in the age of Amazon and big retail chains.
They can get it to you fast. They can sell it to you cheaper.
Robinson says she's going to rest in her retirement. She also says she's going to keep selling records, just not out of the store. As she continued chatting with longtime patrons, a family with 2 young children walked into the store and picked out a few books, just as Robinson had always intended. For KCUR 89.3, I'm Celisa Kolakal.
Hitler had the supreme fascist state. And what was he worried about in Europe and in Germany? He was worried about white genetic annihilation.
One of the most infamous books ever written was published 100 years ago today. Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler came out in 2 volumes, the first on July 18th, 1925. NPR's Netta Ulaby tells us about a documentary that grapples with its terrible legacy.
The documentary is called Hitler's Mein Kampf, Prelude to the Holocaust. Hitler wrote it in the early 1920s, while in jail for violently trying to overthrow the Bavarian state government. In his cell, simmering with rage, Hitler spewed out hundreds of pages of personal memories, grandiose ambitions, and hatred.
In Mein Kampf, Hitler focuses on recreating a greater Germany, founded on anti-Semitism, nationalism, and necessary territorial expansion.
As a read, Mein Kampf is a mess, says John Mihalchik. A professor at Boston College, he co-directed the documentary with his wife. Mihalchik says the book is an unoriginal, incoherent mashup of racist theories and wounded pride in the wake of Germany's defeat during World War I. Initially, it was hardly a success.
When it first came out, the sales were very mediocre.
But Mein Kampf became a bestseller after Hitler's rise to power as Germany's chancellor in 1933.
What he had to do in Mein Kampf was shift the narrative.
Co-director Susan Mihalchik is also a Boston College professor. She says in German, Mein Kampf means my struggle. Hitler, she says, was a wounded veteran who felt
misunderstood, mislabeled, badly treated, stigmatized. And his goal is now to build up his own self-esteem.
And that of other Germans who shared Hitler's sense of being pushed aside, condescended to, and not given a chance. Mein Kampf was foundational to Hitler's populist appeal.
My struggle becomes our struggle, and he rebuilds his sense of self and his sense of purpose.
That sense of purpose seeded mass movements in Germany, including the Hitler Youth and League of German Girls. It rested on the idea that restoring German pride and Germany's economy meant wiping out Jews, communists, disabled people, and many other groups. Susan Mihalchik says she and her husband chose to make their documentary about Mein Kampf because of the current rise of anti-Semitism, racial hatred, and persecution of some political and ethnic minorities.
It seems like it was an old book written by Hitler when he was a nobody in prison, but the long-lasting effect is he understood human nature.
Human nature at its absolute worst. Mihalchik says Mein Kampf today is a loud, shrieking warning. Of that, she says, history could not possibly be more clear. Netta Ulaby, NPR News.
Group representing descendants of Confederate Civil War veterans is suing a Georgia state park. The park is home to the country's largest Confederate monument, and the group argues that a planned exhibit there, which is focused on white supremacy and slavery and segregation, violates a state law that requires preserving the site as a Confederate memorial. WABE's Sam Greenglass has the story.
15 miles east of Atlanta, a massive natural quartz dome juts 800 feet above a forested park. Carved on its face are three men on horseback, Confederate President Jefferson Davis and Generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson.
Stone Mountain is one of the places we bring visitors.
Belinda Allen Clausell is about to hike to the top with her daughter.
My husband and I like to come fishing. My daughters and I, we like to come walking.
The town that surrounds Stone Mountain is roughly 80% black. And for people who live in the area, like these two, this is a beloved local park with trails, golf, laser shows. The park even hosted a Juneteenth celebration last month. Gina Cornelius says she tries not to pay attention to the Confederate carvings.
I can still remember coming with my dad, having our foods and snacks. Fireworks, laser show.
Celebrating America.
Yeah.
This is our country.
In 2021, the Stone Mountain Memorial Association agreed to install an exhibit about the park's history, including Ku Klux Klan cross burnings. Alan Clausell thinks that context will go a long way.
I'm an educator, so you can't just get rid of history. You can't grow if you don't know. And there are a lot of things that are going on now that are turning back the hands of time.
Construction for the new exhibit is underway, but the Georgia division of the Sons of Confederate Veterans is suing to stop it.
The entire tenor of their proposal is an attack on the Confederacy rather than a memorial of the Confederacy.
Chapter spokesperson Martin O'Toole has been coming to Stone Mountain since he was a kid. One of his ancestors served under Stonewall Jackson, and O'Toole remembers climbing the mountain with his grandmother.
And she'd walk at a rapid pace while we kids would haul behind her.
The group's lawsuit is based on a Georgia law stipulating that Stone Mountain remain a memorial to the Confederate war dead.
The idea of a memorial is to emphasize the positive, not to accentuate the negative. They showed courage. They showed the willingness to sacrifice.
The idea for a Confederate memorial at Stone Mountain dates to 1915, when the KKK relaunched here with a mountaintop ceremony. The Atlanta History Center's Gordon Jones says this era gave rise to the myth of the lost cause, which downplayed the South's fight to preserve slavery and highlighted the idea that
they may have lost the war militarily, but in fact, they were the moral victors.
Efforts to carve the memorial stalled until 1954, when a candidate for governor, Marvin Griffin, campaigned on a pledge to finish it. This was the same year the U.S. Supreme Court desegregated schools.
And that was part of the way that he appealed to his voters, who were very much concerned about the impact of desegregation.
It still took nearly 20 more years to complete the carving.
You get to the top, you feel like you accomplished something. You feel like you're on top of the world.
On a muggy morning, I met Kelly Clark coming down the mountain. She doesn't like the carving.
It's very disturbing, and we want it gone.
But for now, the carving isn't going anywhere. The Stone Mountain Memorial Association hopes the new exhibit will tell a fuller story about why it's there. Now it's up to the courts to decide whether the plans can go forward. For NPR News, I'm Sam Greenglass in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
All right, then, let's see. Basketball, hoop, and backboard. Portable. Nope, I'm sorry. It's not allowed. You're kidding. I'm afraid not. Rules are rules. It may not sound like anything, a simple basketball hoop, but from there it's just a few short steps to spinning daisy reflectors and a bass boat in the driveway.
In other words, anarchy.
May sound tough, but ours is a system that works. It's why the Falls is one of the top-ranked planned communities in all of California. Most of our homeowners have been here since day one.
For years now, the I-Team has investigated a lot of complaints involving HOAs and how they use their power, but we've never seen anything quite like this.
Yeah, so the woman in the mugshot right here wanted us to tell you her story, and she wanted us to show you her mugshot. She was arrested and spent a week in jail for what started out as an HOA complaint over her lawn.
I feel humiliated about the whole thing, you know, like I got my head down because this is so embarrassing.
Well, tonight, investigative reporter Adam Walser there revealing how she wound up behind bars and caught up with the HOA's attorney to ask about his involvement.
This is what they were showing in court, like pictures of the brown grass.
Yep.
The grass isn't always green in Irina Green's yard, thanks to a big tree that you can see in this drone video, and a drought that led the county to impose watering restrictions last year didn't help.
Looks like you got some pieces of sod here.
Green says her yard is far from the worst in Riverview's Creekview subdivision.
If you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards that are not up to par.
But so far, she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail for failing to keep her yard up to her HOA standards. It all started with notices from the HOA's management company.
And it went from the grass being ground to, you know, there's a dent in my garage.
Dents too small to see from the road.
That was a part of my court case.
Green was also cited for having a dirty mailbox covered in mildew due to shade and moisture from that same tree.
I would assume you could probably clean that whole mailbox in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And for having a cargo van similar to other ones we observed in the neighborhood. The HOA filed a lawsuit against Green in Hillsborough County Court, demanding she correct the violations. She represented herself, preparing handwritten explanations that the HOA and judge rejected. Green appeared at a hearing last July in which the judge gave her an ultimatum.
My grass had to be brung up to par. He said, you can get seeds, you can do something, but you got 30 days to get it corrected. I said, fine. You know, and he said, and if it's not done in 30 days, you're going to go to jail.
Irene says she spent the next month correcting the violations.
I sold my van to comply. My mailbox was clean. I bought seeds and watered my grass.
But she missed her next court date.
I was supposed to receive documentation. Nothing was sent to my home, and I reached out to the courthouse several times to try to find out when was my court date.
The judge signed an order holding Green in contempt of court and issued a warrant for her arrest at the HOA attorney's request.
It is pretty extreme. It certainly is, yeah.
We asked Stetson law professor Paul Boudreau what he makes of this case.
I think it's pretty rare in a civil case for someone to have a contempt order.
Green was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy in late May after picking up her 15-year-old daughter from cheerleading practice.
When I got out, he said, Ms. Green, do you know that you have a warrant for your arrest?
She was taken to the Orient Road jail.
If they got you handcuffed behind your back?
Yes, I'm treated like a criminal.
At the jail, she got more bad news.
There was no bond, so I couldn't even go home to my family. I sat in there for 7 days. 7 days in the jailhouse, you know, like a criminal.
To be incarcerated without bond is certainly an extreme measure and is pretty rare.
Now, there's a mugshot of you right now.
Yep.
How did that make you feel, just to be put in those orange clothes?
It makes me feel horrible. Like I work hard, you know, I work hard to buy this home, you know, for me and my kids in a better neighborhood and environment, and to be taken to jail and to be treated like that for brown grass at my own home, you know, like it's horrible.
David Lair is a Palm Beach attorney who represents homeowners in cases against HOAs. His law partner wrote the best-selling book, Bad HOA.
You have an HOA who was quick to go after her and to use the full force that they're entitled to.
Have you ever heard of it getting to this point where someone actually goes to jail?
I have not seen that. To be clear, the association does not have the power to put you in jail. Certain other events intervened. Certainly, the judge had the right to do it. I think perhaps there could be more lenient remedies.
Green's sister-in-law, who is a paralegal, filed a petition 6 days after she was incarcerated, requesting an emergency hearing.
And I went to court, and I had to be shackled from my hands to my feet.
And you're there in civil county court, right?
Yeah.
You're the only one wearing orange, right?
Yeah, the only one.
Green's relatives sent pictures of the yard and other evidence to the judge, a different one than the judge who issued the arrest warrant. Green says an attorney for the HOA opposed her release.
He says, well, it hasn't been resodded. The whole yard needs to be resodded. And she's like, not from those pictures that I see. She's like, no, I want her released immediately.
So you were going to sit in jail while they resodded your yard?
Yeah, he wanted me to continue to sit in jail and not come home to my family.
Green was released on the judge's order.
I'm Adam. I'm with ABC Action News.
We caught up with Creekview HOA attorney Francis Frischia, the one who asked for the arrest warrant, outside his office.
Do you think that was kind of harsh to have her spend 5 days or 7 days, I believe, in jail?
I have no comment, but I'll email you on that.
He emailed us a statement saying in part, quote, Ms. Green received notices of violations. She disregarded them. Ms. Green failed to show up in court on August 19th. Her failure to abide by the court's instruction led to the arrest warrant being issued. We called and left a business card at the Creekview HOA president's home, and we called and emailed the HOA's property management company, which issued the violations. We didn't hear back from either. Legal experts say there are lessons to be learned.
Sometimes they act in a petty manner, but if they decide that you need to do something, you need to follow the rules. And when a judge tells you to do something, you have to do it.
I think that they have way too much power. I mean, I never heard of anything like this in my life.
My team investigator Adam Walser with photojournalist Matt McGlashan taking action for you.
Wild story there. The HOA board recently hired a new property management company to enforce its regulations, which started last month.
The man knot, race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood.
The family of Cornelius Taylor is filing a lawsuit against the city of Atlanta for his death.
Well, it has been 6 months since Taylor was killed when the city did a sweep of tents on Old Wheat Street. 11 Alive's Marissa Sarmack is joining us live from the office of the family's attorney. Marissa, what are the details of this lawsuit?
Well, we're still learning exactly what they have put into that lawsuit and still reading through some of that. But today we are told from the attorneys and from that lawsuit that they are seeking damages for Cornelius Taylor's death in that lawsuit against the city of Atlanta. Now, we know the family of Cornelius Taylor was here as well for that announcement, including his son and some siblings. And the attorneys tell us this isn't just in terms of Cornelius Taylor's death and seeking those damages on his behalf, but also in changing the way the city moves forward in sweeping out any type of homeless encampments.
This is about holding the powers that be accountable for the way they were rushing to clear a community out.
Cornelius Taylor was one of many homeless residents living in a tent on Old Wheat Street. The city used DPW machines to bulldoze tents and clear out the encampment on January 16th, killing Taylor, who was still inside one of the tents.
Basic safety check would seem to be before you crush a tent where you have reason to suspect that a human being lives and may be inside.
Cornelius Taylor's sister, Darlene Cheney, getting emotional as the details of January 16th were rehashed by the family's attorney.
To take a few seconds to open the tent to see if anyone is inside the tent.
Darlene says she was the last family member to see and speak to Cornelius.
He was, just talking about getting off the streets and how I told y'all about the ID thing, just trying to get him an ID. And he told me he had a job, that he was supposed to start working. It was a happy conversation.
She wants to use her tragedy to bring change, as she says the Justice for Cornelius Taylor Coalition is doing now, helping get others off the streets and into temporary housing.
I watched all the years go by and how he struggled, and he finally got to a point where he didn't want to struggle anymore. And a decision was made for him, but now we can help make decisions for other people to get them out of this life.
The DPW crew members who were also listed in that lawsuit individually were actually listed as John Doe and John Does 2 through 7, and they were listed as those involved in the cleanup and operating the machinery that led to Cornelius Taylor's death. We are expected to see those names revealed as we get more information in discovery. Reporting live tonight, Marissa Sarback for 11 Alive News.
A lot to still learn, Marissa. Thank you. We did reach out to the city for a response after this lawsuit was filed. A spokesperson said the incident involving Mr. Taylor was a tragedy. However, it would be inappropriate to comment on any potential pending litigation.
Now, that even sounds like this might be a food desert type environment where the black people reside in Milwaukee. I don't know. Is that the case? Is Milwaukee a food desert? Oh, man. Man.
You are very right about that. And I know we're talking about my current film, Something in the Water, but my next film is actually about food insecurity in Milwaukee. There are 13 food deserts in Milwaukee, and with Milwaukee being so segregated, most of them reside in the black and brown neighborhoods on the north and south side.
People in one Milwaukee neighborhood protesting the loss of their grocery store.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
It was the last day for the Pick and Save right near 35th and North. One of 5 grocery stores the parent company Kroger is closing in the Milwaukee area. Organizers of today's protest say the loss is just another blow to the Metcalf Park neighborhood.
We're thinking about all the closures that's happening. So this is one store to close. Walgreens is closing as well. We have clinics closing. So now we have to go way outside of our immediate area to get the things that we need to live a whole and full, thriving life.
Now, here's a look at the 5 locations that are being closed in Milwaukee, Glendale, South Milwaukee, and Oak Creek. Pick and Save is offering resources to affected customers at the Metcalf Park and Silver Spring locations. Those resources include free prescription deliveries for the rest of the year and a free 30-day grocery delivery trial.
Black babies cost less.
The Trump administration wants Americans to have more children, but advocates have been warning for years that maternal and infant mortality rates are high in the U.S. NPR's Katie Riddle brings us a story about one woman in Georgia who's on a mission to make pregnancy and birth safer for families in her community.
Standing in the Georgia heat one afternoon, Katie Chubb gestures out to an empty lot. This is where she's been trying to open a birth center for 6 years.
We're going to have a freestanding birth center here, be 1 story.
Chubb is a community organizer in a state with some of the highest rates of maternal and infant mortality. Chubb says this birth center is badly needed. The community is surrounded by maternal health care deserts where pregnancy care is difficult to find. Her vision is for a freestanding clinic that employs mostly midwives.
We'd have parking along the road as well as emergency parking for mothers that were in labor and needed to pull up.
But despite widespread support from the community in Augusta, she has encountered obstacle after obstacle to this effort. Chubb is originally from England. She says she never imagined that this would be her life's work.
Coming from the UK, I think taking an outsider perspective on healthcare makes me see the amount of injustice and inequality there is in the U.S. healthcare system, especially with lack of patient autonomy.
Patient autonomy was a big concern for Clarissa Vians when she was deciding where to give birth to her baby. She didn't want to go to a hospital. She was concerned about being pressured into interventions like a cesarean or drugs to speed up labor. But there was no birthing center available. She's given birth at home before, but this time things went very badly.
So this is the ventilator.
Vian's 17-month-old baby is hooked up to a number of machines. He suffered a brain injury after being deprived of oxygen at birth.
If it were to alarm, you would hear like a burp, 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 burp.
He's in a diaper, taking a nap on the couch. Her older children are home for the summer. During the birth, when things started to go badly at home, she did go to the hospital, but she didn't get there in time. She ended up having her baby in the car.
It was very, 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 very stressful, and I honestly thought that I was not going to make it. Like, it was so painful.
Do you spend time thinking back, like, oh, I should have done something differently?
Yeah, I think, looking back 2020, I may have made different decisions. But there's only one way to go, and that is forward from here.
Vian says she and her husband are planning on having more children. She still doesn't want to go to the hospital for the next one, but she says she would happily go to a birth center. She wishes she could have gone to one for her son's birth.
If we had had a birth center, it would have changed his outcome.
There are many reasons that community organizers have not been able to open a birth center here. A big one, they can't get the local hospitals to partner. Birth centers are required to have agreements with hospitals in case they need to transfer patients there. 2 of the local Augusta hospitals did not return NPR's request for comment on this issue. One hospital, part of a company called Wellstar, said in a statement that they offer their own, quote, complete women's health services. Dr. Andrea Braden is an obstetrician who works in Atlanta.
The obstetricians who have the really high malpractice rates end up being stuck with the liability. And that is really unfortunate, but that is where a lot of the resistance comes from.
Braden is not part of this effort, but she does work with midwives. She says in Georgia, obstetricians worry about cases exactly like Clarissa Vian's, who come in when things have gone wrong. OBGYNs are more likely to be sued than other kinds of doctors. Activist Katie Chubb has another theory about why she can't get the hospitals on board.
It is a lot of monopolization, putting their profits over patient needs.
Again, the hospitals in Augusta did not respond to NPR's request for comment. But this kind of opposition to birthing centers from hospitals and medical associations is not uncommon. Birth centers in Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, and Iowa have also faced resistance. Katie Chubb says she gets inquiries weekly about when this one will open in Augusta.
Every person that reaches out to me motivates me a little bit more to keep going.
Chubb says someone has to keep fighting for more birth centers on behalf of moms and babies in Georgia. Might as well be her. Katie Riddle, NPR News, Augusta, Georgia.
What you gonna do in Chicago? Now, what you gonna do in Chicago? What you gonna do in Chicago? What you gonna do in Chicago?
A Chicago mom is suing Chicago Public Schools, claiming, among other things, her daughter was the subject of racist bullying and administrators failed to tell her. Sarah Maki joins us now from the newsroom. Sarah, where does the mother say this happened?
Well, right. The claims center around a school on the far northwest side, Wildwood IB World Magnet School. Sharon Hinton says her daughter was a student there from 2022 through this spring. Her lawsuit with a long list of serious claims, now hoping for systemic change.
The harm she endured wasn't hidden. It was documented. They saw the signs, they had the reports, and still they did nothing.
In a new lawsuit, Mom Sharon Hinton says her daughter, using the pseudonym Jenny, was the subject of physical, verbal, and sexual abuse while one of the few black students at Wildwood IB World Magnet School from 5th to 7th grade.
My daughter didn't just fall through the cracks. She was placed in them.
The suit names the district and 4 individuals, the principal, assistant principal, as well as 2 PE teachers, saying there was a collection of incidents against Jenny.
Students are referring to Jenny as the N-word behind her back, using school computers to do that.
The lawsuit creating a timeline of bullying incidents, including alleged student messages to Jenny that told her to kill herself, as well as sexual behavior by a staff member. The result, a PTSD diagnosis and serious suicidal ideations. When you realize the severity, how did you feel in that moment?
It broke my heart.
Hinton says she holds the system responsible, pushing CPS to immediately notify parents of any suicidal ideation assessments, like the ones her daughter received at school, immediate notification of bullying, correct student behavior for those involved in racism or bullying, and pushing CPS to establish a separate office for bullying allegations, which lawyers say could save the district long-term in legal fees.
The millions of dollars worth of damages far exceed the cost.
A CPS spokesperson told us Chicago Public Schools is committed to the safety and well-being of our students. The district does not provide comment on pending litigation. CPS policy states parents or guardians should be notified of bully reports within 1 day. The family also seeking monetary compensation. From the newsroom, Sarah Maki, CBS News, Chicago.
Sarah, thanks. Across the sea, I suppose they're free. I suppose they're free outside of this place known as Chicago. Known as Chicago. Known as Chicago. Known as Chicago. Chicago. What you doing to me, Chicago? Running it at me, Chicago, running at me. What you gonna do in Chicago? What you gonna do in Chicago? Now what you gonna do in Chicago? Where you gonna be in Chicago? Set me free, Chicago. Set me free, Chicago.
It's the expose of a system, a state-run system that protected predators at the expense of children.
More than 900 lawsuits have now been filed alleging sexual abuse at the hands of staffers in both state and county-run youth detention centers. And now some of the alleged victims are speaking out.
They are demanding accountability from the state. Casey Cronus is live on the city's west side with the latest. Casey.
The alleged abuse is said to have spanned decades when most of the victims were between 14 and 16 years old. And we need to warn our viewers, some of the details in this report are disturbing.
But when the state allows dozens upon dozens of officials to perpetrate abuse across decades without consequence, that is a systemic failure.
Over the last several months, hundreds of lawsuits have detailed emotional and sexual abuse within the walls of Illinois youth centers, including Harrisburg, Chicago, and St. Charles, along with Cook County's Juvenile Temporary Detention Center on the city's west side. Formerly known as the Arthur J. Audie Home, it is the largest facility of its kind in the nation.
And we're here today because children were raped. They were assaulted, they were molested, they were threatened, and they were abused, all while in the custody of the state.
Just this week, 107 new lawsuits were filed. Attorneys for the victims say 86% of the victims were boys, with most of the alleged abuse taking place in the early 2000s.
The Attorney General of this state has taken the position in legal documents filed in June of 2025 that traumatized children should have come forward with their claims before turning age 19.
The lawsuits claim strip searches were used as a pretext for much of the abuse.
I was left bruised, naked, handcuffed, shackled, and unable to move. My life has been severely impacted by the trauma I experienced.
The claims also allege that boys and girls endured years of psychological abuse, and victims say they are still struggling to cope years later.
I thought that the officers in the facility were there to keep me safe and protect us, but they were only there for their own game. The game of taking our innocence and manipulating our minds.
Now, victims are reclaiming their stories in hopes to prevent the same thing from happening to others.
Today I stand before you hoping to lead by example and eliminate those feelings of shame.
We reached out to Attorney General Kwame Raoul's office, along with the Office of the Chief Judge, which runs the Cook County Juvie Center. Both tell us they cannot comment on pending lawsuits. Reporting live on the city's west side, Casey Cronus, Fox 32, Chicago.
This question, why is this stuff happening? The New York Times editorial today. The Trump effect. See, this is what I'm doing with my money, buying newspapers like Dick Gregory.
Much obliged to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing for the example, as well as Dick Gregory. Point that out all the time. Two folks that we cite, reference all the time as being influential to our understanding of white supremacy racism. They probably would have had a lot to say about, wow, they're defunding PBS, NPR. Man, Dr. Welsing, Dick Gregory, they check the news all the time. Neely Fuller Jr. as well. I can't see them being excited like, man, now I got less outlets to check, get information about what racist man, racist woman are up to. That can't be good. Gus T. Renegade, worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy racism. Information for non-white people, victims of white supremacy. White people do not need to listen to the cows. This broadcast is not for you. Today's date, Saturday, July 19, 2025. So I have been told. Our weekly compensatory call-in, just because, hey, what we do every week, what has been happening. Pay attention to the news. NPR, PBS, we've been, paying attention to their news reports for years, mostly because they talk about white supremacy, racism all the time, mostly very directly. Indirectly all the time, but frequently it'll be very explicit. But we've been listening for years. Those aren't the only two outlets, but I mean, hey, pay attention to even local public radio. Very important. And within this context, at least for the U.S., where there has been an erosion of local news anyway, that was a big part of the reports this week. Like, oh my goodness, President Trump is taking back $9 billion in funding from public media. Already in an environment with lots of folks, they say, especially places in like rural U.S., away from some of the bigger cities, they've been losing local newspapers anyway. So what happens in that sort of environment where you have even less and less coverage? Now, I can just go to some of the immediate things that we've been talking about. The weather. Now, I think it's been cliche to laugh and joke for years about, hey, the weather person, the meteorologist, what have you, they don't know what they are talking about. They're just throwing darts, at the screen or what have you, or they pick a forecast out of a hat or whatever, but they don't know what they're doing. The weather is going to be the exact opposite of whatever they say it's going to be, that sort of thing. Well, that may be true to a degree. Hopefully it's gotten better over time, but I do know when they have warnings for these extreme weather events, oh man, they have had lots of grousing like, man, we didn't get proper notification, or the notification was confusing, or it could have saved more lives. That I cannot imagine defunding public media, so now we have fewer local news outlets, less funding for PBS, NPR. I cannot imagine how that's going to make the severe weather response better. I could be totally wrong, but they were actually talking about making cuts to FEMA too. So, hey, better get that generator for reals. That's a whole lot to think about if you gonna live in one of those storm-prone areas. We're gonna have proper broadcast information, so we'll know when we need to kiss our hind parts goodbye. At least fill the tub up with water so we can flush the toilet. Serious times on the plantation. I'm a big advocate of being informed. And particularly, you already have large numbers of non-white people. We don't check the news anyway. Now to have even less outlets potentially, whew, man. I had talked about, or many people, Gus T included, had talked about lack or de-investing in infrastructure in this part of the world. I had not considered news, but that might be maybe the most, infrastructure, information, and the transfer of information is a big part of infrastructure. So, hey, we're not just going to let the bridges and roads fall apart and the pipes with all the lead, we're not going to replace them and let them fall apart too. We're going to take PBS and NPR apart also. Well, lots to ponder. Let's see. The number to dial, 720-716-7300. The code, 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300, the code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Before we get to folks who dialed in, again, the COWS widely available archives. We have thousands, literally, of broadcasts. Feel free to share the content with non-white people, especially in an era where might be difficult to access news and information, share the cows. Hopefully we have done and are doing our part, sharing information with non-white people, victims of white supremacy, information to help us replace white supremacy with justice immediately. To that end, the cows is available, the archives on Podbean, Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and it goes on. But I mean, that's, good 5-6 different outlets. If you have difficulties, let me know. But lots and lots of content going back years, hopefully with constructive information, even with Dr. Welsing and others talking about, hey, I do think it is important. Check news and information, if that's written news, news on television, audio, all of the above. Hey, whatever. Be informed. Local, national, global system of white supremacy, racism. Invest in the context of white supremacy. You can hit the blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button, top right corner. Beneath the button, you'll see the links for Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. Enormous gratitude to the folks who have kept us on the air for 16 years, hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Speaking of Amazon wish list, which is also linked on the blog, oh my goodness, I saw MacBook Pro have on my wish list. It dropped almost 50% in price. Man, oh man, if we have any folks, you have been killing it on the plantation. Racist man, racist woman have really looked out for you. You have cleaned up. Either you hit the crypto jackpot. You didn't get DEI'd and furloughed like any of our folks. You really came up. Man, MacBook Pro. Gus T, obviously the broadcast. Gus T does need a computer. 16 years, like, man, thousands of broadcasts. We have put some wear and tear on a few MacBook Pros. But it dropped 42% in price. Like, isn't that crazy? I thought it was crazy. But anyway, it is on the wish list, so much obliged. That or any other object, certainly. The MacBook Pro would be great, but there are other cool things on the wish list as well at Amazon.com, listed under Gus T. Renegade. Much obliged for all the folks who have nabbed an item or 12 over the years. Hopefully we have been worthy of your time and energy. Hopefully we are worthy of a new MacBook Pro. Drop 42% in price. Woo! Now, let's see. The audio segments that we heard at the beginning, they had Miss Robinson out in the Kansas City, Kansas area, and hey, reading is more important than watching television. Amen to Willa Robinson on that. But she spent all this time and energy and years collecting books, literature for black people, and saying, seeing black parents come in with their children and buy books by black authors. Dr. Welsing would love that. But I thought importantly, within all that, she said, hey, it's difficult. It's challenging being a black bookseller. We've heard about that for years. I have. But she said, hey, Jeff Bezos and them, they can sell it quicker. I mean, they put it in your hands. Hey, they might even have a drone, drop it on your front door porch. They can get it to you quicker. They can get it to you cheaper. That is the system of white supremacy racism. Now, we can all sit around and, I'm altruistic and I love black people and I'm going to go get 15 copies of A Song Flung Up to Heaven from the black bookstore, get it from Miss Robinson. That's all well and good. But when you have lots of black people who don't have very much money anyway, they've been DEI'd and furloughed and everything else, how in the world are you going to go and pay even more money? You're not going to go and try and get the product for as cheap as possible. You're going to pay even more money just because of your love of black people. Even if you want to buy a bunch of books, that would kind of mess it up, because if you went the Amazon route, you could get them cheaper, so you could get even more. That's kind of why Neely Fuller Jr., why he talked about, hey, you can get your business and all of that, but I mean, hey, the white people can sabotage black businesses and all of that. Pick you, the lemonade stand, or whatever you got, and be done with it. Soup bookstore, whatever you got, and toss all of it off the ship. We have to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. And I mean, it's so many black bookstores, it's the exact same story. Exactly the same. Amazon came, and all the rest of it online, and blah blah blah. And especially if you're like a brick and mortar, like, oh man, it's difficult to even find one of those. That's anyway, not that hey, I'm all about reading, just saying, like, wow, that is system of white supremacy on display again. And in fact, even within that report, they said the same thing that we heard on the Boeing report. That played previously, where they were talking about President Trump and his relationship with them, and him contracting to get all kinds of different planes and making it mandatory for different companies, for different countries, for aid packages. You got to buy these Boeing planes and all of that. They said even there, hey, if China, if they want to get into the aviation business and maybe open up their own airlines and such, man, you got to compete against Boeing. Oh man, they almost said the exact same thing. They can do it cheaper, they can do it faster. Like, oh man, and the system of white supremacy, the sabotage, which is the same thing for the black bookstores. Like, which they really don't have to do as much for the black bookstores, because I mean, now I don't have to quote Chris Rock today, do I? But anyway, with the planes, they said the same thing. Boeing and all the rest of that, gonna be difficult. We'll see. And I'm thinking, Boeing, like, how is it difficult to compete against Boeing? Their planes fall out of the air all the time. People should be looking to avoid flying with them, right? System of white supremacy. Let's see. In Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is very close to ATL. We were just talking about them this week. David Fritz Fortune, filmmaker, black male, ATL area, Decatur, where it's greater. I did not make it to Stone Mountain while I was in ATL, although it was talked about all the time, and I heard people talk about the fireworks display. They even said that they would show, like, Confederate soldiers, riding in the fireworks display, which I guess, like, 2025, that's kind of tame, because they have all kinds of goofiness in the displays now. But, like, this was a few years back that they would do this sort of thing up on the mountain. I've never been. I keep everything exactly as it is. I'm no fan of going and scrub. We got to take all that down. And if they got KKK racist paraphernalia, leave it all up. Just give us, who put this up, when, exact context. Did they lynch any niggers when they did all of this, and blah, blah, blah. Just, give it that. And we should have all the IDs. Like, I don't want no redactions, full name, lineage, their folks still here, mayor of the town, county, whatever it is. Just give us all the details. You don't need to take nothing down. Leave everything as is. Just tell the truth about, how all this got here. And then get back to the fireworks. Let's see. Okay, that 60-minute segment, I did not become aware of that until like Friday. But that was from 60 Minutes Sunday this week. 60 Minutes airs, the new episodes air on Sunday, so there'll be a new episode tomorrow. But that chunky segment with Jennifer Thompson, Ronald Cotton, oh man. Anybody who has listened to the C.O.W.S, this is kind of an either or. If you have listened to the C.O.W.S for a period of time, if you have listened to the C.O.W.S episodes when Dr. Curry was with us, either or, oh man, that immediate, I am familiar with these people and this story that they're talking about, these wrongful convictions, my ear, everything perked up immediately as soon as I looked at that, and they said, oh, we got Jennifer Thompson on here. She's doing a retreat. And I was like, what? Jennifer Thompson picking cotton? Jennifer Thompson? Yes. Picking Cotton, full title, because this is a book, Picking Cotton, Our Memoir of Injustice and Redemption. Dr. Curry talked to us about this book all the time. In fact, I remember specifically, I was having computer trouble in 2015, 10 years ago, springtime. I was having computer trouble. I had to send my Mac in to get repaired, and it took like a week to get it fixed and everything. I only had one machine at that time. So I had to send my machine in for a week to get it repaired. Had to take a week off from broadcasting, which I hated. Had to take a week off from being able to access news and information in the way that I normally would, which I hated. So to compensate, I said, okay, I will at least take a little bit of the free time that I have to do some of the reading, because I have 1 billion books on my read list that I still haven't got through, and they have new books coming out all the time, so I will grab one. What book did I grab? Picking Cotton, Jennifer Thompson, Ronald Cotton. I always thought, like, what the hell? His name is Cotton. They named the book Picking Cotton. Like, what? Who pick? Anyway, this black male, Ronald Cotton, wrongly convicted of raping this white woman, Jennifer Thompson, in North Carolina. And I think he served about 11 years or so before he was released, DNA evidence. Oh, man, it's so many aspects of this book that I could go back and share that I highlighted, but the one that stands out specifically, they moved Mr. Cotton. This happened in North Carolina. They moved Mr. Cotton to Tennessee. His parents were going to go and try to visit him, but, oh man, it was either they were not allowing visitors or there was confusion around, oh, he got relocated over to Tennessee. But either way, his parents did all this drive, and I think it might have been the former, that they knew he got moved to Tennessee, and so they drive all this way. They want to share food, it's so-called Christmas, and they want to be with him, so-called holiday. And I think it was like 6 hours one way, something monstrous. They drive all this way and like, oh, no. Cotton ain't having no guests today. Beat it. Now they got to drive 6 hours back. Nothing. It was one out of many, but I remember like, dang, this happened in North Carolina and you get moved to Tennessee? Like, good God. Like, and I didn't even do this. It was so much that's in. I guess the first thing, because of the scholarship, brilliance of Dr. Tommy J. Curry, this was even before his book was published, The Man Not. This was way before 2000, because I just said I read it in 2015. His book wasn't published, The Man Not, until 2017 when he was talking about this. But because of his scholarship, Dr. Curry, I knew this is not like an anomaly. And really, if you just watch, like you heard the audio, if you watch that 60 Minutes report, it should stick out glaring like, wait a minute now, these privileged black dudes, it's not just Ronald Cotton, it's Howard Dudley and Raymond Towler. Like, you got a whole lot of privileged black dudes coming through the exoneration line. Now, they didn't even bring all the privileged black dudes to the retreat with Jennifer Thompson, but they just showed a big collage. It was black dude after black dude after black dude after black dude. They had a non-white person, and I think they did eventually sprinkle in like a few white people. But man, how did you all pile all of these niggers, privileged black males in here who get wrongfully convicted, and they didn't say nothing about that? And I mean not a peep. Now, they say, Gus T, you're a coon, you don't know what you're talking about, you're ignorant, all the rest of it, right? That's what they say. I knew off top, hey, there is a massive racial component. It is way disproportionate, the number of black males who are exonerated through DNA evidence, and 60 Minutes showed this visually. All you have to do is pay. You could just count how many exonerees did they show, how many of them were black dudes, what's the percentage of black people in the U.S. Wow, it's way too many Leroys. Why is that? They spent 25 minutes on that segment. 60 Minutes normally doesn't even spend a half hour on one. That is super irregular. That's like you have an interview with President Trump or something, President Obama, while they're in the White House or something. Maybe we spend 30 minutes with them, 25 minutes on. So you got a lot of time. You took a commercial in the middle of this report and came back to it and everything. That's irregular. If you got that much time, you could have spent 60 seconds. You got all these niggers, Ronald Cotton, you got all these niggers, and the whole history, because they didn't say nothing about this either. That's why, in my opinion, they get an F. You're going to spend all that time on that raggedy segment. Jennifer Thompson, white woman, came up, wrote a book, now she got a retreat and everything. You don't say nothing about the long history of wrongful convictions of black dudes where any black dude will do. North, south, east, west, any black dude will do. You don't say nothing about that, nor do you say anything right now. Like I said, they got white scholars. Samuel Gross, University of Michigan. He's been studying this for 10 years. I know this because of Dr. Tommy J. Curry. But Dr. Gross, who is a white man, has studied this extensively. Whole reports about, dang, it is way high the number of black males who get exonerated on DNA evidence where they come back 20, 10, 15 years later. Whoops. Sorry about that, Leroy. Whoops. Sorry about that, Devonta. I know we didn't call you a rapist for the last 25 years, and you might even been gang raped while you was in prison, but, my bad. We was wrong. Then they come back in the next 5 seconds talk about OJ. But in my opinion, 60 Minutes, they get a total F for that report. Those are massive and willful exclusions. Why does it all these black dudes and non-white people? Because they had some non-white, non-black males who had been wrongfully convicted too. Why is this? Not all of the people who victims, rape victims and the other crimes there, not all of the victims were white. Some of the victims were black who spoke in the report. I think that was important. Andrea Harrison, black female, and her dad, they were there as well. And it was a black dude who was wrongly imprisoned. I think his name was Larry Peterson. He was not one of the ones at the retreat, but he was imprisoned for a number of years before they found out DNA evidence. No, he didn't do it. And she said, they had told us for all these years that he did it, and they had the evidence, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that probably is true. They went and told her, and it's not like they had brought her down to the prosecuting office every day and let her look at all the evidence and asked her opinion. I'm sure that's not the way it worked, that they just told her whatever they wanted her to know, her and her dad. And then she comes to find it. In fact, with some of these, I think with her specifically, she was the one who said, Miss Harrison, black female, she said, they didn't even tell us in advance. When they went to release Larry Peterson, who had been wrongfully convicted, privileged black male, when they went to release him, they didn't even give her a heads up like, oh man, sorry, Miss Harrison, just so you don't wake up and see this splashed across the front page and thinking that the rape or murderer who killed your mom, thinking that, he's strolling through the grocery store getting Tostitos or what have you. They didn't even give her a heads up. She said she saw it in the news, which she might not be able to do now since they've been defunded. It doesn't get any better than tacky, but I'm sure that could be the situation where enforcement officials, I suspect in many of these situations, classified as white, do whatever they want, any Negro will do, and then it comes out all these years later, it might not even be the same detectives. Probably isn't the same detectives, But I don't want all that on me. I don't want to have to be answering questions, especially answering questions about something I wasn't even involved in. Like, man, go find, whoever retired and no comment. Let's like that's how we respond. But I mean, man, it does not get any better than tacky. Even I found the retreat kind of tacky on top of it. Like, you're going to go sit around and break a bowl and put it back together. And man, come on. Like, come on. They don't even have correct compensation for a lot of these black people. Like Mr. Cotton, Mr. Towler. Now, he got $2.5 million after he was wrongfully convicted of child rape. They said he raped an 11-year-old. He was the one, he wrote the letter. They said, you is an angry black male and a sexual predator. They don't even call Mary Kay Letourneau a child. That's what they call Mr. Towler. And he's a big, dark-skinned black male. So, he had no chance in court. Probably with a whole jury full of white people. This happened in Ohio, too, Mr. Towler's case. Anyway, they did, like I said, they did have a non-white, non-black male there, Chris Ochoa, who's going through the same thing. They did have white people there as well, but whew, if you see it, lots of black dudes wrongfully locked up for many years, sometimes decades. The next report, the Homeowners Association and Irena Green, black female. Mr. Fuller is really one of the first and few people that I've heard say, hey, system of white supremacy, racism, you don't really own that house. Even if it's paid for, you work and get a great job and you get Jeff Bezos money and it's paid off and all that and boom, boom, boom. I mean, system of white supremacy, racism, same thing we said about the bookstore and the lemonade stand. White people can, an eminent domain, beat it, Leroy, beat it. We got to put a road here. We got to put a park here. Or you didn't cut your grass. It is a long history with those homeowners associations and even who gets to buy a house here. We talked about all that before in sundown town. Some of that is in sundown towns about those homeowners associations. But, oh, man, I can't even. You going to jail about your grass. Wow. You better get that lawnmower. I don't know what to say. She even said, Miss Green, that she had been making all the efforts to comply. And they said, you didn't do it fast enough. I still see some brown spots. Wow. Wow. System of white supremacy, racism. You do not ever really own that house. Not even possible with what we have. Can I get one more privilege? Well, I got to get two. I'll go quick. So 2 more for the privileged black males. So 1, Cornelius Taylor. Condolences, killed in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta 2 times. Got killed in Atlanta in a tent, houseless black male. Privileged in Atlanta. It reminded me, we had a report, it was about a year ago. And I think it was not in Georgia. I think this was in like the Missouri, Kansas region. They were building, and I think it was a black male, importantly, but they had a program where they were building earthen brick houses. They could build these really, really affordably, make them really cheap, and get, quality, but they're still quality. Not that they're going to fall apart or anything like that or look raggedy. But they're earthen brick houses. They can be made really quickly, really cheaply. And he said, hey, our target demographic, black females. That's who we're going after because, hey, they have jobs and they're stable. They pay their bills and everything. We get them housed and bang. And I remember it was a caller where she said, dang, the group, according to all demographics studies that I've seen, the group that is most likely to be homeless in this part of the world is privileged black males. Why would they be? We get to Leroy. Why can they get no. Mr. Taylor, Cornelius Taylor, we can't get him an earthen brick house? No. We got a used tent for you, though. It gets cold and hot in Atlanta, like heat advisory hot in Atlanta. I don't think they got no air-conditioned tents. Maybe they do. I haven't been out there to check, but oh my Lord, it is 91 degrees. That was the high in Atlanta today. It has dropped to 80 degrees right now, but see, It's 10 o'clock in Atlanta, and it dropped to 80 degrees. I can't even fathom that because we never have weather like that. It's never 80 degrees at night, at 10 o'clock at night in Seattle. Like, never, 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 never. In a tent. I can't, come on. Anyway, so Mr. Cornelius Taylor, and they were talking to his family. They said, Mr. Taylor, he had no ID, and he was trying to get things together. He was still positive. Just had the real, now I don't know if that's, he just had identification, but he didn't have real ID, or if he had like no ID. That can be dangerous, I can tell you, as a black male. Like, ooh-wee, even if it's, you just left it at the house or what have you, and you went outside, like, oh man, that, you can be gambling with your life not having identification. I'm not even talking about trying to get through TSA or nothing like that. I'm just walking down the street. Could be trouble, which he did encounter. We'll see what happens with the case with Mr. Cornelius Taylor. I said, man, they will lean on black dudes in Atlanta. Woo! I said that. I was thinking that this week when we spoke to Mr. Fortune. Matter of fact, he said his film color book, which I saw at the Seattle International Film Festival, he said, I'm pulling back from saying it's an ode to Atlanta. This is just the place they live where these events happened. The main black male characters in his film, they could have been killed, just like Cornelius Taylor. There was a scene where the police were coming to get them too. He said, I'm going to pull back on that, which that was kind of in my thought process, because, man, as someone who lived in Atlanta, in Atlanta proper, I didn't sneak out to Decatur, nothing like that. I lived ATL proper. I do not have I love me some 6, 7, 8. I love me some 5 points. Nah. I love me some Lennox Small. I love me some Bucket. Nah, I don't have none of that. Now, I was too trifling to graduate from Morehouse, but still. You got to be outside your mind, particularly just looking around at the way come on, if I had to trade Atlanta for Seattle at any time, same thing I've said for years, I would moan, weep, and wail every day until I got to move again. If I had to trade Seattle for Atlanta, I will stick with the plantation I have right here every day, twice on Sunday. I swear part of that has got to be there's a lot fewer black people in Seattle. Black and I'm proud. Last report was Chicago. The Illinois youth detention facilities, they got nearly 1,000 people alleging sexual abuse in the youth facilities throughout Illinois, including Chicago. They said, about 70% of the cases of sexual abuse were males, boys. I've seen a lot of videos. No. I've been to Chicago several times. Shout to Dr. Welsing, Pamela Evans Harris, Lauren Cress Love. We go on and on. Beezers, Harold Washington. Who gets arrested in Chicago as a youth? We can stop right there. But they showed videos of some of these victims. They look just like Ronald Cotton. It was more privileged black dudes standing up there whimpering and crying, talking about, man, delectable Negroed me while they got me in custody, where maybe I did something, maybe I didn't. Delectable Negro, human consumption and homoeroticism in U.S. slave culture, still #1 on Gus T's reading list for a reason. That's why I said, too, Chicago, you can't be ignorant about John Burge. It's like, hey, we do this for, I thought they were going to say with John Burge. And they said, oh, no, this is way more recent. Like, oh, okay, this is not John Burge. But it is John Burge because they put the electrical charges on your testicles and everything. They supposed to teach that in school. In fact, no pussyfooting, call it terrorism and everything. Same thing. Same thing. That's why I say again, you can't be ignorant about local history. Why you got to check the news. Oh, man. All of that. I would have to talk to my child about that all the time. Like, oh, my God. We live in one of the most dangerous places in the world. We right next to Milwaukee, too. That's why while I was in Milwaukee and Chicago, it's like an hour apart. They're very, very close. You could drive in like an hour. They're super close. The whole time I was in Milwaukee, the people in Milwaukee said, man, Chicago ain't no better for black people than Milwaukee. Facts. Shout to I'm sure Dr. Welsing would have had whole lectures on that. 1,000 youth allege all that sexual abuse and anti-sex. And then he's going to say, well, we got to do the strip search. We do the Leroy, you smuggling, you got a razor, you got crack, you got fentanyl, we got to touch you. What you got? Dr. Welsing would have had lectures about that. Delectable Negro. Dr. Curry, too, we talked about that. The man not race, class, genre, dilemmas of black manhood. That's how I know about the false exonerations. A whole lot of things happen to you when you get hemmed up for rape. You got to stay in greater confinement for 25 years. Like, woo. Anyway, we'll pause there. The number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943. Pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. If we have any folks experience with the homeowners associations, let us know. Did they come out and get ready to throw you in jail so you haven't trimmed your shrubs? Your grass ain't quite green enough? Slacking on your lawn care? Let us know. 720-716-7300. The code 564-943. Pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. See if folks have thoughts, observations to share. Let's see. Oh, so many folks have been talking there. We are reading Mary Kay Letourneau, Catherine Massey Book Club currently, and so many folks, myself included, have been talking about Young Academic and saying, man, my God, especially you're talking about the white woman. Remember, he said he was going through his academic program to teach in the classroom, and he said, oh man, this white woman was making advances at me, and one says, oh no, I don't, I'm serious. I'm serious about the pupils, and I'm not trying to get down and do nothing crazy like that. I said, what? Is this Negro trying to, okay, we going to put some trouble on you now. You acting like you don't want to date this white woman. What kind of no-count coon is you? Lots of folks, including myself, that, man, is he following along with this? Like, what in the hell? And then Mary Kay was all tardy. She wouldn't come to class on time and everything else, too. Oh, my Lord. Anyway, this is not the book club, but, oh, man, we have been thinking about Young Academic quite a bit. With us here, Young Academic, good to hear from you, sir.
I have been listening to the book club. Early in the year, the person I've taken over for, it was a white lady, and she was sleeping with the students at a military school. But greetings, Gus, the host, listeners, and callers. Can I be heard?
Crystal clear.
In the system of racism, white supremacy, the Negro can't breathe. Black brother in hell. The problem of racism, white supremacy will be solved in my lifetime. First, let me say this plainly. My respect for you, Mr. Renegade, is unwavering and absolute, far beyond what most confused black males in the system are even capable of giving, far beyond what most people, period, can offer another human being. You stand by your work, your depth, precision, and conviction are all in pure alignment with universal law. On 4 separate occasions, the Creator used you, whether you knew it or not, to save my life. Not just from mental illness, but from a deep spiral into depression, a last resort signal sent from the black male Negro body unconsciously trapped in survival mode, a mode that forces short-term, high-alert functioning, not just for days or months, but for generations. It is a state of reactive living rather than empowered thriving. I now understand this is not a flaw, but a sane response to an insane system, the system of racism and white supremacy. You cannot be mentally healthy in a system designed to destroy your self-respect. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. That quote, Mr. Renegade, and the conversations on this program saved my life. Without Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, you and the listeners and callers, I would still be unaware of this. You were the first to introduce me to Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Wilson, and Dr. Tommy Curry and others. You helped me understand that depression in black men is not a personal failure. It is planned obsolescence. The system manufactures the belief that black males are unworthy of love, protection, or respect. It dehumanizes and emasculates us, eroding self-esteem at every level. We are taught not to feel, not to cry, not to break down, not to ask for help. Instead, we are expected to be numb, enraged, invisible, and broken. The big black Negro is programmed to self-destruct through substance abuse, through silence, through violence, or isolation. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as intended. The confusion runs deep, even within my survival unit. However, this program gave me the space to step back, recognize the dysfunction, and stop participating in it. I now see them not as enemies, but as victims of a system never designed for them to thrive. I've chosen to separate, not out of hate, but out of purpose and self-preservation. The black male is not meant to know peace. The system does not train us to live. It trains us to survive. We are programmed to be guarded, alert, quiet, tense. We are taught never to name our pain because if we cry, we look dangerous. If we break down, we confirm the worst lies told about us. The black male mind is under attack. We are trained to become our trauma, doubt our worth, fear our emotions, destroy ourselves and those who look like us. The white supremacist lie of black manhood made me believe something was wrong with me, that I was weak, a failure, a bitch. But I didn't know the truth. By design, this system breaks logical thinking black men, making them a rarity. We are programmed to accept the version of manhood this system offers us: materialism, domination, and sexual conquest, all while being undereducated, underemployed, surveilled, policed, our bodies commodified, our labors extracted, our histories erased. It is a well-designed trap. You, Mr. Renegade, and the ability to listen to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing live over the years taught me that true manhood is rooted in black self-respect. You taught me that depression in black males is not a disease. It is not accidental. It is a logical, emotional, and subconscious response, a rational reaction to sustained systemic abuse that erodes dignity and identity. The male Negro is blamed for his condition while white supremacist system that programmed him escapes scrutiny. The depression is not self-made. It is manufactured, imposed, and maintained by design. It is not a pathology. It is not irrational. It is data weaponized by the system, refined to consume us from within. But your program reminded me Black male mental health matters. I'm not crazy for feeling what I feel. I'm not broken. I'm wounded. You and the callers encouraged me to go to therapy, to speak to a Black therapist, and I did, and I'm better for it. Because of your example, sir, I used a large language model to write a prompt to find a therapist inclined to my beliefs. What made her stand out was her horrible rating online. Before we began, I was sure to interview them about the system of racism and white supremacy. To my surprise, she had attended one of Dr. Francis Cress Welson's lectures while in college. She affirmed that she believes in the system and she understands the system of racism and white supremacy and how it functions and how I must break out of survival mode. Before proceeding any further, I made sure to research her thoroughly, her background, her credentials, and we had an honest, necessary conversation about these things up front. As a result, not only was I able to begin my healing, but I was able to assist her in helping a future Black male psychologist complete a clinical supervision. The entire experience reminded me of Dr. Francis Cress Welsson. The truth they fear, the Black nigger, the boy, the bitch is never supposed to be believed. The system of racism and white supremacy relies on emotional reaction rather than critical, logical analysis because emotion, especially when unprocessed, keeps the Black mind defensive, distracted, and disoriented. A clear mind can organize, a critical mind can resist, but a mind clouded by grief, rage, fear, or hopelessness is easier to manage, manipulate, and contain. In this context, depression becomes a programmed emotion, a tool, a way to keep Black males locked in the program, running the script, internalizing the blame, and mistaking survival for manhood. It ensures reaction over reflection and pain over power and is designed to wear us down. His truth is treated as an automatic lie. He is gaslit into silence and confusion until he either lashes out or fades away. Most Black men don't even realize what's happening. They're led to believe their struggle is personal, not systemic. But now I see it clearly. We are not disposable. We are not obsolete. We are not alone. Mr. Renegade, you never set out to be anyone's example, but by standing in your truth, you became one. Because of you and this program, I no longer chase the lie of manhood that white supremacy offers the Negro. I no longer measure myself by domination, materialism, or performance. Instead, I walk towards a life rooted in discipline, reflection, dignity, and Black self-respect. Thank you for holding this space, standing by your work, and being proof that we can be whole even in a world engineered to break us. Now, we're in a game, in a system designed to confuse, miseducate, and traumatize. Many of us are not even aware of game theory, where every move is strategic. You don't act randomly, you act to win. And in this system, they're always playing to win, white survival at the cost of Black life. Game theory is controlled through prediction and reaction. It's about predicting your opponent's next move, structuring the rules so you always win, calculating risk, reward, resistance, how white supremacy uses it. It uses it by predicting and controlling Black reactions through poverty, policing, propaganda, and fear. It sets up no-win situations. Protest equals punishment. Silence equals meaning you're going to be ignored. Success is equivalent to isolation. And make sure every move by Black people is a reaction, not a strategy. The goal, to preserve the system while limiting Black agency and avoiding white extinction through constant preemptive control. Predicting how Black people will respond to trust, poverty and violence, then setting traps around those responses to justify further controlling policing, jail, school removal, and offering no winning moves, only survival moves. You're never meant to win. You're only meant to stay tired, distracted, and disconnected. That's the game of chess Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was referring to. History reveals a pattern. The Negro male is never supposed to understand it. Our oppression confuses us to the point that we can't confront history with clarity or confidence. I feel exposed when I drive through suburban upscale neighborhoods in winter. There are no sidewalks. The roads are wide, curving, with no place for anyone to walk unless in a car. These neighborhoods weren't built for people like me. They were built to keep people like me out. The design is intentional. Overpasses and bridges are built low so city buses can't pass through. If you don't own a car, you don't belong there. I see all of the lights on in every room of every house. No shades, no curtains. The lights stay on like a display. It's not just comfort, it's confidence, it's safety, it's ownership, it's knowing you won't be questioned for being here. It's knowing your presence is never mistaken as a threat. That level of access and security is not available to Black people in the city. It feels like looking through a glass you'll never touch. These neighborhoods don't just look different, they function differently. They have better funded schools, better access to health care, no visible industrial plants, no police checkpoints. Their children breathe cleaner air. They are more likely to go to college. They are not funneled into the justice system. They don't need to fight to be seen as human. Where I come from, we're taught to keep the lights low to save energy, to close the blinds for safety, to stay quiet, and we're punished if we don't. That's not just cultural, it's survival. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, the system allows others to live fully without fear, limits, or punishments. In those neighborhoods, Black people don't thrive because we're never truly allowed in. Not just physically, but structurally. The same design includes the transportation system, the zoning laws, the school district, and even light visibility. Since my last call, I've tried going to the gym daily. It was a goal of mine to lose 68 pounds because we read Elsie Mae Washington's book, I Have Reached This Goal. I want the longevity of Strom Thurmond. Then one day, I decided to complain about the noise I could hear through my headphones at the gym. The white female manager who wasn't present when the incident occurred decided to remind me that I was a Negro. When I complained about the loud music being played by white female college students, she accused me of intimidating an employee. She handed me a $120 bill the next day, though my membership was paid. When I called headquarters, they closed in 5 minutes. When I tried to re-enter the facility to inform her that headquarters was closed for the day, she said I was raising my voice. After pointing at the cameras and saying that everything should be documented, she said she felt in danger for her safety. I left with the quickness, and not to my surprise, they barred me from returning for a few days until the incident was investigated, interrupting my routine. This is how I found myself in my black self-respect while running 6 miles a day in a park filled with mosquitoes. The same mosquitoes that the Negro residents of Ethiopia endured after being displaced for railroad expansion. Louis Lattimore may have worked on prolonging the brightness of the filament in the light bulb here, a story of Black resistance and Black death that I knew nothing about. No plaques, no education, no context, no memory. 5 power plants surround the park. I breathe their pollution. My lungs burn. These plants were built to push out Negro survival units, engineered obsolescence. Wet marshlands became what was left. Mosquitoes followed. Like Central Park, a stop under Underground Railroad, Seaside Park is America's first beachfront public park. And just like Seneca Village, a Negro community was displaced. Seaside Park's history is also a story of Negro erasure in the name of progress. I ran past the ground where Ethiopia, Little Liberia stood, not a black village, but a thriving, wealthy community with schools, a church, a resort, and 36 homes. Black sea captains, oyster harvesters, and Mary Eliza Freeman, a millionaire, Connecticut's wealthiest black woman, lived and thrived here. She believed in Negro economic intellectual independence. She wasn't a rare exception. Her wealth was only second to the greatest showman on earth, known to hold Iko and Iko, two kidnapped Negro albino twins, hostage and use them as circus performers exhibited in the 20th century, called them Men from Mars. I did not know that the ground that I have been walking on was a former spot for wealthy Negroes in the Underground Railroad. That exact location is known for the first Negro school started by petition to the state legislature to, in other words, challenge white supremacy with the first Negro lending library in 1849, stressing the importance of reading and education and black self-respect. A correspondent from Frederick Douglass's newspaper writes, in Ethiopia, the black may reign. This is a spot for respectable colored people. Let them never play the tail anywhere. They can play the head. The community's wealth was a resistance to white supremacy, and white supremacy erased it. The destruction of Ethiopia follows the same pattern that shut down Prudence Crandall School by mob violence. Negro schools are now built on land once polluted by industry. I didn't know that when it was a brownfield, when factories had dumped waste and walked away. No one cleaned it up. Instead, they built a school for little Negro children there. It was supposed to be a beacon of hope, but it stained our lungs, cycled us through standardized tests, and funneled us into the school-to-prison pipeline, a system that pays $221,000 a year just for one juvenile detention, but only $12,000 to educate a single child. I left that school to teach elsewhere, but the same building is closing, downsizing, and being relocated, ironically, to yet another contaminated site outside of our district. The black children I taught will no longer be able to attend. They are yet being displaced again under the guise of upgrades. But I see the pattern. White supremacy's refinement, as Neely Fuller Jr. says, shifting its tools to maintain power, then expanding. Dr. Bobby E. Wright called white supremacy a psychopathic behavior that lacks empathy by design. Depression in black boys, he says, is a symptom of that system. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson showed how the system teaches black people that we are inferior. Neely Fuller Jr. defined racism as an algorithm of establishment, maintenance, refinement, and expansion, a system meant to destroy black people, especially black men. Fuller explains, the purpose of the racist program is maintenance, expansion of white supremacy and dominance. Depression is not a personal failure. It is proof of being broken by design. My heart aches for the children who breathe harder here. Black kids in our cities are 6 times more likely to be hospitalized for asthma and 4 to 5 times more likely to go to the ER than white kids. Schools on brownfields, neighborhoods bordered by pollution, doctor's appointments before class. Their reality is shaped not just by poor choices, but by systems built to limit their lives. Prisons cost 10 times more than schools, but earn nothing in return. AI labs drain our air and water from black cities to power global tech systems. Mental health failures, depression, distrust, trauma aren't random, they're structural. Then came the announcement. The university is opening a new AI lab near the Brownfield School, advancing computing, machine learning, robotics, and promised as the future of opportunity. But I see deeper. This AI lab is another refinement of control. It will likely be used It will likely use biased data that flags students as risk, replaces teachers with surveillance systems, and profits from the very pollution and neglect these children endure. Taking their data, their potential, and cementing the pipeline into a digital form. Artificial intelligence demands massive energy. In Karen Howe's Empire of AI, she shows how the global artificial intelligence development extracts energy and health from Black survival units. These are extractive practices disguised as neutral technology. They replicate plantation logic, take labor and resources from marginalized groups, and deliver profits elsewhere. In Empire of AI, Karen Ho exposes that artificial intelligence codifies global inequality, manipulating water rights in Chile, exploiting low-paid data workers in Kenya, and again, extractive practices hidden beneath neutral algorithms. Elon Musk, XAI, built a supercomputer facility called Colossus, powered by dozens of unpermitted gas turbines in Memphis. These turbines demolish air quality, emitting 1,200 to 2,000 tons of nitrogen oxide annually, nearly predominantly Black neighborhoods plagued by asthma and cancer rates 4 to 5 times high above the national average. South Memphis residents struggle to breathe. The NAACP and Southern Environmental Law Center filed a notice to sue under the Clean Air Act. They say that the pollution directly threatens health, and XAI treats it as an acceptable harm in the pursuit of technological supremacy. AI centers use millions of gallons of water daily, straining aquifers and requiring power from fossil fuels in areas that already lack transparency and environmental protections. It is a modern-day form of sacrifice zoning. Local communities bear the cost so artificial intelligence can rise. The purpose of the racist program is maintenance and expansion of white supremacy, power, and dominance. Artificial intelligence is a refinement stage. Surveillance, predictive algorithms, bias profiling, and economic displacement. It embeds racist logics into supposedly neutral systems. When AI grades, monitors, or disciplines students, especially Black youth, it often worsens the school-to-prison pipeline, reinforcing systematic disadvantage. I thought back to Peter Thiel's vision of AI as a higher power. They actually think AI will become God, entrenching white supremacy. His deification of code over human empathy, of new religion under the control of the guise of progress, Dr. Bobby E. Wright calls this white supremacy psychopathic behavior, said it lacks empathy by design. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson taught me how the system drills this inferiority into Black people, and Neely Fuller Jr. defined racism as established, maintained, and refined and expanded. The school closures, the pollution, the displacement, these are not mistakes. They are design. I ran that thought and I wondered, can I build something different? Then I opened the admission email from the university in the tri-state area, the one launching the AI lab. I received an acceptance into the university's artificial intelligence engineering master's program and artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and robotics, the site that sits on the land that I've been walking on. I am one of 10 students accepted into the institution this year that builds pollution zones and controls access to these fields. Representation of Black minds in artificial intelligence is low, while Black communities remain excluded from decisions about artificial intelligence and deployment. I haven't figured out how I will pay for it, but my purpose in joining this program is to disrupt that cycle. I bring Black self-respect, context, and justice while remaining under the radar. Artificial intelligence doesn't have to reinforce the pipeline. We can code for healing, for transparency, and for genetic dominance in the face of white genetic annihilation. I will go there not to be another believer in their system, but to reshape it from the inside. They may have designed every obstacle, but will not define my purpose. They call this progress, but I know a plantation when I see one. This time, the cotton fields are replaced with data fields. Instead of overseers on horseback, we have surveillance cameras and predictive algorithms. Instead of whipping scars, we carry trauma data embedded in our health records and school files. Instead of chains, we are bound by zip codes, debt, and asthma pumps. Artificial intelligence-powered denial systems. The plantation never ended. It evolved. In Ethiopia, ancestors harbored oysters in pain. They built homes, not cages. They read books, not indictments. Their libraries were temples of self-respect. Their schools were not pipelines. Their churches were not trauma sanctuaries. They were launch pads for liberation. But when white supremacy realized that Black self-respect was more dangerous than rebellion, they didn't send mobs. They sent maps. They sent zoning maps, infrastructure, investments, railroad expansions, and toxic industries. They replaced Black wealth with brownfields. Now our children cough through math class. They drink from lead-tainted fountains and breathe in fumes while trying to memorize states of matter. They grow up inside sacrifice zones which were created not by chance, but by design. This is the refinement phase of white supremacy. In Connecticut, the cost to incarcerate a child is more than the cost to educate one. That's a profit motive. That's not neglect. It's policy. Locking up Black youth is more profitable than freeing their minds. Why build schools with self-sufficiency in mind when you can build prisons with profit margins? Artificial intelligence feeds this machine. Every detention, every referral, every suspension becomes data. Predictive analytics flag Black kids as threats before they reach adolescence. They are then turned into probabilities, not people. This is not a school-to-prison pipeline. It is a data-to-Negro regulation algorithm. Karen Hall warns of this in Empire AI. She breaks it down. AI is not neutral. It is trained on biased data. It encodes the racist worldview of the global white minority, those who fear genetic annihilation. So it classifies Black assertiveness as aggression. It tags critical logical thought as extremism. It scans Black faces less accurately, but polices them more frequently. Every line of code becomes a threat from the overseer. Every camera is a digital tool for police and constantly watching, collecting your data without your consent to be commodified without proper credit or compensation. They've created a plantation without fences, only firewalls. Controlling the timeline. I didn't understand quantum mechanics at first, but once I looked into it carefully, I realized it's not just about science. It's about how reality itself works. It's in classical computers, information is stored as ones and zeros. Everything is either on or off, simple, but quantum mechanics doesn't work like that. Things don't behave in fixed ways at the smallest level of the universe inside atoms and particles, like in an electron. A quantum particle can simultaneously be in one and more states. This is called superposition. It can be in one or a zero or both until something causes it to decide. The something is called the observer. The moment a person measures or observes a quantum particle, it changes. It stops from being in multiple states and settles into one. This is called the observer effect. In plain terms, the outcome of an experiment depends on who is watching and how they are watching. In a system of racism and white supremacy, white people are usually the ones in the position of the observer. They set the rules, define what is true, decide what is considered normal. That means that Black people are seen, judged, and treated is affected by the beliefs and fears and interests of the group that fears genetic annihilation. When white supremacy controls the observer role, it decides how Black children are taught, how Black adults are policed, and how Black life is measured. It limits our choices, changes our outcomes, and locks us on narrow paths. In artificial intelligence, if artificial intelligence is created and trained by people inside the system using biased data and faulty assumptions, then it continues the same process. Artificial intelligence becomes another observer that shapes our reality blindly. Quantum mechanics can process large amounts of data, predict behavior, and simulate possible futures. If these machines are programmed within a system of racism, they are being used to maintain control by watching, predicting, and managing Black people before we even act. This is why quantum mechanics and observer effect matter, because who gets to watch and how they watch determines what is possible. If Black people do not gain power to observe, define, and build systems based on truth and justice, then we will continue to be shaped by someone else's decisions. Understanding this is not just about science, it's about survival. While we are facing genocide, it is about power and it's about changing who gets to decide what becomes real. Dr. Wilson taught that white supremacy is not merely about hatred. It is about genetic fear, existential fear, a system run not on emotion, but survival instinct. So what does that mean when they begin playing with quantum computers? When they begin simulating reality faster than we can speak them into existence? The many worlds theory tells us that every choice creates a new world. Quantum computers can process those choices before we make them. In this context, quantum machines become a timeline, gatekeepers. They are trained to collapse any reality in which Black people regain control over resources, land, education, or identity. They are designed to trap us in echo loops of inferiority and chaos. Their greatest fear? That we will awaken en masse and walk towards a new timeline of clarity, strategy, and universal alignment. There is no algorithm yet for truth and no quantum processor for Black self-respect. When I run those 6 miles through that park where Ethiopia once stood, I'm not just burning calories, I'm burning lives. Each breath I take is a challenge to the power plants polluting my environment. Each drop of sweat is a micro-rebellion against engineered obsolescence. I am not just a man on a fitness journey. I'm a descendant reclaiming stolen memory. I'm running for Mary Eliza Freeman, for the children whose lungs burn, for the forgotten Black towns under public parks, for the future coders who will not be controlled. This is the generation where timelines diverge, and the problem of racism and white supremacy will be replaced with universal justice. We must control our emotions and keep playing chess on the board and win. This is why quantum mechanics and observer effect matter. Who observes and how they observe directly changes the outcome of the experiment. In a system of racism and white supremacy, non-white people, especially Black people, do not control the experiment. They do not set the rules. They are the observed, measured, and labeled and controlled based on standards that they did not create. This matters because observation is power. The observer decides what is real. The observer decides what changes and what stays the same. If Black people do not become observers of our reality, if we do not take control of how we are defined, measured, and understood, then we will always be shaped by someone else's definition. The system uses algorithms, quantum technologies to predict our behavior, monitor our decisions, and control access. It studies our responses. It adjusts itself to stay in power. But even if the system can predict every likely move we might make, it cannot calculate what happens when a person becomes fully conscious of the system and no longer reacts to it. It cannot predict what happens when a person chooses justice and logic over confusion and emotion. It cannot stop a person from acting on purpose based on code and clarity. This is how we exit the system. Stop repeating the same outcomes and create a new structure. We do this not by reacting or performing, but by becoming conscious of our situation and making a decision to act based on justice and truth. The system of racism and white supremacy must be replaced with a system of justice. We must stop reacting emotionally to the confusion and start using logic and discipline. To any Black educator, engineer, parent, or youth listening to the sound of my voice, this is Young Academic. Start the conversations, raise the questions, map the displacement, name the algorithms, challenge the incentives, design for justice. Use artificial intelligence to reveal what is being hidden. Use quantum science to understand how systems work. Use your time, your thinking, your choices to produce justice. Fuller teaches us that justice means no one is mistreated, and the one person and the person who needs the most help gets the most help. We are learning to see clearly. Once we see clearly, we can move correctly, and that's how the system ends. Last, a shout out to Emmy. There was a vision, half joke, half prophecy. There would be two major centers in the world, the Neely Fuller Jr. Center of Counter-Racist Logic and Reasoning, and the Frances Cress Welsing Institute for Scientific Study of the American Global System of White Supremacy. It wasn't just clever, it was a blueprint. A world where racism is no longer defended, denied, or debated, or only studied because it has been dismantled. A world where logic, data, psychology, deep human study are redirected toward producing justice. A world where white and Black children don't inherit trauma, but understanding, structure, and truth. These aren't just names. They represent a future where the system of racism has been studied, dismantled, and replaced with justice. A future where research, education, and psychology are no longer used to maintain harm, but to restore balance. Your commitment, Emmy, reminds me of that vision. Thank you for being you. And Gus, you are very important to me. I have great respect for you and your work. Thank you again for your yoga retreats, believing in me and showing me Black self-respect through example and all you do. Using artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and advanced robotics, we will end the problem of racism, white supremacy, and produce universal justice for all. Thanks.
Well, bravo, Young Academic. I guess, first of all, bravo for investing in your mental health. That is, priority number one. You can go back in the archives for listeners to hear some of the times he's called in before, even go all the way back, hear some of the times where he called in to talk about his teaching experiences, which reveals a lot about the area of education. Laterno. But you can go back more recently and hear some of the discussions that we had about mental health. So to hear he not just invested, but, the nature of the investment and put the time into, hey, I'm going to find a Black therapist and someone who actually I can speak to this person about racism, white supremacy. Maybe I can even say white supremacy. He said, she heard a Dr. Welsing lecture while she was at college and, believed in the theory and all that. So, I mean, wow, right on. All right. No, this is, I don't really use the term, but so-called safe space where I actually can speak honestly about white supremacy, racism, and how this system has impacted my health or lack thereof as a Black male. Wow. Bravo. Dr. Welsing would be pleased. And then 2 times. Congratulations. He got accepted into the Master's AI program, going there with the intent of learning to produce justice. Bravo. Maybe he can give us an update on how all of that is going over the, I don't know, months, years, duration of the course, but doing constructive things. Bravo. Learning as much as possible, and even with subversive intent in mind. I will say, generally speaking, for the most part, it is kind of difficult for people classified as black victims of racism to be under the radar, generally speaking. Generally, Fuller, that's the type of thing I think Fuller might say. Generally, there are no secrets on the plantation. The goal, much obliged for sharing. He was talking about going out to get some exercise in. Unfortunately, the terrorism at the gym, know a little bit about that myself. But the goal, inspired by Essie Mae Washington Williams' memoir, Dear Senator, where Essie Mae lived pretty long as well. She's passed on, but I mean, Essie Mae lived to be almost 100, and Strom Thurmond, he lived to be 101. So, hey, that right there, I'm gonna try and get as much time and energy as I can, so that I have many, many years to produce justice. Bravo. So I'm going to put my goal out there, see if I can lose it. Want to lose almost 70 pounds. Ooh, it's like a 10-year-old or something, you know? Said he was able to do it too. Like, bravo. That is, you know, hey, bravo. That they did talk about that in Dear Senator. Strom Thurmond, who lived to be 101, he talked about that, not eating all crazy and get some exercise in and go walking. He used to chide his, chide his love child. You mean the black female offspring that he produced when he raped that black child in his house? Yes, but see, love child make it sound a little nicer. Right? But he used to chide Essie Mae, talking about Strom Thurmond, racist. Say, you don't want to be all big boned and, you know, get your weight down. You don't want to be, now, might be she had all that extra weight because of the stress of racism. I got this old racist dad who raped my mother when she was a child. Maybe that's why I got weight issues. You should walk a little bit more, Essie Mae. That was all in Dear Senator, important book. Anyway, but he says, I'm going to get my weight down. He meets his goal. That's part of black self-respect, too, because white people, they do not intend for us, non-white people, to be healthy and eating good food and taking care of ourselves. And at the gym, he said that. He was intimidating, rapist. Get on out of here. They barred him from the gym. I shouldn't. That is not funny. That is not funny. I should not be laughing, but because I do know about that. But man, you get barred from the gym. That's like jail. Like at the gym, just because. Can you ask her to turn her headphones down? Oh man, here we go with Leroy. He's out here terrorizing white women. Could have been Mr. Cotton, man. Let's see. But feeling in danger while you're out exercising. I even felt Ahmaud Arbery for a moment. Get Georgia again. He did say that they used the AI to discipline the students. I said, wow, that's wow. I don't have children, okay? But I didn't know about that. Like, wow, I know they, using all the technology in the classrooms and AI teachers. I knew about that, but like, wow, you get your punishment from, wow. Like, wow, that, whew. All right, there's lots to process and chat about if you're going to have offspring in the system of white supremacy racism. I did not, wow, much obliged for sharing. I will humbly submit congratulations on 2 accounts, the investment in your own mental health We just talked about that. Matter of fact, we just talked about that with Mr. Fortune, his movie Color Book, but we just talked about that with black mental health and talking about how we feel and what's happening with us as victims of racism. We just talked about that on Tuesday. Big part of his movie Color Book, Mr. Fortune's project, which was one of the best films that I saw at the film festival. But congrats 2 times for dialing in to share all of this, and then congrats on the master's program as well, doing the paperwork, being diligent, always learning something constructive. Bravo. I guess 3 times for the wait too, so it's right on. I will humbly say, my opinion, just my view, and I could be 1,000% wrong, and even if I did hear it incorrectly, I might have misheard. I do not think that white children inherit trauma from the system of white supremacy racism. I've seen no evidence of that at all. Racist jokes? Yes. Trauma? I don't even hear white people talk about being traumatized to children, like hearing their parents tell racist jokes, like talking about how they mistreated a black person, kept a black person, for how they cheated them on their housing appraisal. Like, I don't know. That's victims guaranteed qualified for sure, but I do not think white children or white people in general inherit trauma from the system of white supremacy racism. But I could be in error. Make sure I did not miss anyone. They have additional thoughts, observations to share. Let's see. We will be here for the book club. Mary Kay cannot wait. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. This is kind of a chunky book, which I do not care. I am super engaged, like Seattle history through and through, but it is a little bit chunky, so we've not really made very much progress. I don't know, quarter of the way through. We've been reading it for a month, and we've got like a quarter of the way through, so we'll be reading for a minute. If you have offspring, maybe you should investigate the AI, and if they discipline your child at school, eat. And then, do they have any Mary Kays at our school? Lots to talk about if you are attempted parents in the system of white supremacy racism. Lots to talk about before you even get the child here. All that pollution, everything that you said, like, man, where do we live at? Well, we're going to have to breathe. What are our children going to have to breathe? Oh, my goodness. Lots to talk about before you have non-white children system of white supremacy. Much obliged. That's it. Other folks that said, young academic, should go ahead and just write a book. See, just go ahead. That way he can write out, everything, his experience, because it'd be so much. It'd be his academic experiences, and then workplace experiences, mental health, right? Then once he gets done with the AI master's program, that'll be a whole nother, chapters there. I mean, just go ahead, write a book, something, I don't know, some aspect of black male experience and towards justice. But yes, just go ahead and write that book. And other reading, writing, more important than watching television. Absolutely. Didn't miss anybody. Make sure I didn't miss anyone. Comment they want to get in before we conclude. Okay. So, got everybody. Again, we'll be back. Just check social media to see when we'll be here for other programs throughout the week. Certainly Neutralizing Workplace Racism on Thursday. Catherine Massey Book Club on Friday. Reading more important than watching television. However, one on NPR, which they might be getting rid of or at least defunding, they had a report. There's supposed to be a movie coming out called Eddington about white defiance. Specifically, it's about a fictitious town during the Rona where the resident, you don't tell me I got to stay. You don't tell me to wear a mask. You don't. Now, I thought it was kind of soon for that because, I mean, I thought they said COVID was kind of still with us and all the rest. So I thought that was a little early, but they say it's here. I've been talking about white defiance. Now, I don't know if they're going to use that term, but I cannot wait to see this. And particularly because they made a fictitious town. So this is like all white people who are upset about the regulations and you don't tell me what to do, all that sort of thing. So that's one that I do want to see. Two, film that just came out. Same time. Sovereignty. Oh, man. This, I'm not encouraging going to binge on Netflix or anything like that, but oh man, this is about a white man. He gets all into the sovereign movement in the U.S. Now, when I first heard of all this, I thought this was like a black people thing because I was, seeing, that's who I was seeing and hearing. It was like lots of black people on social media. This is like in the I think Obama was in the White House. This is during that time period. And you would see them on social media and stuff, and they'd be talking about, I'm sovereign citizen movement. They might still be, doing it. I don't see as much of it now, but I see a lot of this. Sovereign citizens, and, these laws don't apply to me, and a driver's license, that would be a big one. I had no idea that this was a white people thing, that they had been doing this for years prior to. I had no idea. I knew that before this film. But when I first saw all of this years ago, I thought this was a black people thing for a while. And then it was like, oh, no, white people have been doing the same thing. Like, okay. So then this film comes out, like, I think this week or sometime very recently. And it's about this white dude who's in the sovereignty movement. And he has his son with him. And they're, going at it with the bank and enforcement officials and getting their guns. End stage white supremacy. And they even make a way in the film for you to empathize with this terrorist. I mean, terrorist. They find a way. He's a dad. And he's a well-meaning white dude, and he bonds with his son. All the rest of it, and another little white with like his girlfriend or whatever. And he goes out and tries to help other white people keep their house. Don't let them boss you around the banks and all that. Some of the white people that lost their houses during the foreclosures and all that sort of thing. Catching a heartbreak, they say. Man, this is one of those. I could not, even what I just said. This is not like the image. If you had told me and hadn't shown me a movie picture, if you had said, hey, Gus T, there's going to be a film about the sovereignty movement in the U.S. If you had told me this like in 2010, like I said, Obama years, I would have sworn up and down this is going to be like an all-black cast. Is Spike Lee doing this film or something like is Michael B. Jordan going to be the lead role? Like what, that's what I would have been thinking if you had told me. There's no way in the world I would have thought like, what? It's going to be some Timothy McVeigh looking. What? What now? I got it. I understood this for some time, but that was not my understanding originally at all. The film is, like I said, they still find a way to empathize, but man, that right there, end stage white supremacy. Even you can think the white people getting furloughed and government jobs, and that right there, that film. Now they might not say this sovereignty movement, but ooh-wee. That right there, going out and attacking the electrical grids and all that. Bing. I even was thinking like, dang, they should have had that. Both of those. In fact, if they had that at the film festival, either of those, Eddington, the one about the fake town during the Rona, and white defiant, you don't tell me where, man, I would have flipped out. I'd have been the first one in line to see either of those if they had been at the film festival. Reading more important than watching television. And really, that's the same thing with both of those films. Real life, not no made up boogie monsters and zombies and all that old nonsense. No, this is real life. What do white people do? White behavior. White man, this is even white people being violent with other white people. Now, I haven't seen Eddington, so I don't know what that's about. But I mean, well, I do know what it's about. NPR told me it's about white defiance during the Rona. So I suspect there's going to be some white violence in the film if it's based on, if it's based in truth. It's going to be some white violence, even white violence against other white people, white on white crime, as they say. Reading more important than watching television. I've seen one, looking forward to seeing the other. We will be back midweek, I reckon. Just, stay tuned, social media. I will update. Young academic, much obliged for sharing. Write that book. Write that book, and then maybe give us an update about the AI program. Sobriety would be best. Young academic, he told he should have a section in the book talking about the cannabis consumption with the young pupils he teaches. You've heard about that. I remember that. And these were like young folks, not like these were folks who, were days from graduating. Like, oh, they're almost legal. No, not even close. Put that in the mental health chapter too, because they were self-medicating, perhaps. It could be a double whammy. You talk about it in the academic and then in the mental health chapters too. But it's your book. You do it. It's your book. You do it. Anyway, Creator, we ask, help us maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste other non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. Stop saying not all white people are racist. Stop name-calling black people. Stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay Letourneau. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.